Okay, after the third week in a row, I think I have this down. Ladies and gentlemen, and squids, if that's how you choose to identify this evening, if you can see my face or hear my voice, you know that can only mean one thing. Yes, I'm Mike, and it is time once again for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports. Yep, it is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. And we have a lot to talk about and a few people to talk about it with. And I am sure that we will do our level best to make absolutely no sense when we do any of this because that's on brand for us. I'm joined as I am pretty much each and every week by my partner in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it?
Going. It's going. It's going. It's reminded of a song where the lyrics are just one of those days. Just one of those days. That's what I'm doing.
Are you thinking the Whitney Houston version?
No, I'm thinking of the Sizzler version, but
Okay.
my Jamaican compadres will know who I'm talking about. But
I know exactly who you're talking about.
That's
Great artist. Always
Yep.
one of my favorites.
Absolutely.
So how's decorating going and all things school related?
Man, you know what?
House
You know
related.
what? Let me tell you this. Everyone in my house, other than me, has been sick for the past 2 weeks. Every single person. So, so let's put it this way. The decorating has been kind of on hold. I've been trying to keep my kids in school, and my daughter's been home with me. And 3-year-olds are exhausting. She's this beautiful, sweet little girl, but boy, everybody's on the mend though. Got medicine. Everyone's now doing better, except for my wife, of course. But yeah, that's been the last 2 weeks. That's why I was supposed to come down here, enjoy lovely Georgia, lovely Atlanta metro area, really get some rest, and I have never been so tired in my life. They start school early down here. Woo, man.
Yeah. Well, the only good news is that they get out early too.
Yeah, my kid's getting on the bus at 6:58 in the morning. So that's really early.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
That's you got to get school in before the heat starts. And you got to get them out before rush hour because if you let kids out, and I don't care where you are in the metro Atlanta area, once rush hour hits, that commute goes from like 30 minutes to like 4 hours.
Yeah, Metro Atlanta and Northern Virginia are neck and neck. Neck and neck. Yep. Northern Virginia, my brother's coming from Woodbridge to DC. Trust me. That's what it is over here. That's what it is.
Yep. So we were supposed to be joined by and welcome back by Rob this week, but unfortunately, he's under the weather.
Yeah.
The proper thing to do would be to wish him well and tell him that we hope that he's feeling better and that we hope that we'll see him next week when he's on the mend. But the proper Too Many Guys Soccer thing to do is go, that's what you get for all of this travel that you've been doing, Mr. Globetrotter.
Right. Cruise shipping, going to Australia.
Going to Australia. Yeah, all of that. Yeah. Talk about those chickens coming home to roost. He was just in Qatar. I mean, dude did 2 World Cups in the span of like 9 months. Who does that?
Yeah. I think I was on a cruise with the fam.
Well, we hope that he's feeling better and we'll welcome him back. And I'm sure that he'll have some choice words for us when he gets back. We do, however, have Coach G, one of our favorites. Great to see you.
One of our longest correspondents on the show.
Yeah, so unfortunately, you guys have me to start, not Rob. So, hey, I'll take number 2 anytime, guys. I'll gladly be on the show whenever y'all need me.
We're number 2. We're number 2. It's so many.
Hey, G, you're one of the few that recalls being on the Two Guys show. So
I remember the phone calls.
Yeah,
I remember all this. I remember the phone calls. Like, what do I say? Yeah, it was.
Hey, G, I can honestly say we spoke for probably at least 5 hours. I had no idea what you looked like.
Yeah, and I'll never forget what Leo told me. He goes, once you see Mike instead, don't be surprised. I go, what do you mean? I go, oh, all right. So, and like, yeah. I go, you just never would expect. And obviously, knowing me, is like you expected maybe a bald. Wait, I am going bald. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going that way too. Some old man. So, but yeah, definitely it's just kind of cool just how we all kind of just somehow met. And instead, you said, 6:58. Man, I'm at work at 6:58 already. I'm there. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning, man. And it sounds like you need a vacation. So it sounds like everyone right now is kind of getting back into our normalcy. Summer is over. Here we are now teaching. Families are saying, thank you, teachers. Take our kids back because now we need some rest. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, my daughter's starting daycare tomorrow for the first time since June. So I'm like, tomorrow's gonna be a great day.
and something else is going on this week. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if y'all forget and just hype up Matt, not me again, like y'all did last year. Bums. I don't think I forgot.
Oh, that's right. It's Matt's birthday. I forgot it was Matt's birthday.
It was also Rob's birthday.
Yesterday, yes. And I'm sorry that there was a bad present, but, someone had to deliver some victories.
Yeah, so we do have to wish Stead an early happy birthday.
Thank you very much. And hopefully Matt will be able to pop in. We can wish him an early happy birthday as well.
I don't think Coach Matt actually exists anymore.
He hasn't existed in quite a while now. And when you have 2 under the age of 3, I understand why.
Yes. I can totally understand, and we feel sympathy for him. So it'll be good. We hope to see him soon.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, lots to talk about as always, and let's start with the most obvious route. It was the final of the Women's World Cup, and Spain are champions. And in the words of the immortal London Sean, England end up looking like a bad brawl. Plenty of support, and no cups. It was a really, I gotta say, it was a really good game. I think, to a certain extent, I had bought into the hype from what I had seen from England and thought that, this was going to be a coronation. But wait a second. Spain had something to say about that. And to be honest, Alexia Putellas, who has been the best player in the world for a little bit now, she was really a non-factor coming back from injury throughout this World Cup, but they managed to get it done, and the Spanish women are world champions. I was talking to one of my coworkers who is from Cadiz, and was very excited about the fact that, and I was congratulating her, hey, great job. And she was saying, it really is fantastic, but I hope now that the government starts to put some actual investment into women's sports, because, there is no women's sports programs beyond like what Real Madrid and Barcelona women contribute to this team. And to see these women, she hopes it's an inspiration to the girls, and they realize, hey, we can go out there and do it too. So a well-deserved championship, to a well-deserved World Cup to the Spanish women. They really were the best team throughout this tournament. Now they're the best team in the world. G, I know that you have a background in women's soccer, that you enjoy the sport. I'm pretty sure that you watched it and have followed this entire tournament as much as you could.
Well, one thing I wanted to say is I actually had an exchange student from Italy, and she played for my high school team and everything. And she goes, "Thank you very much for having me on this team. Like, it was like a complete honor." I go, "Yeah, you're good enough." Blah blah blah. I go, "When you go back to Italy, I would love for you to keep playing." And she goes, "Well, actually, there really isn't any soccer for females. There really isn't any soccer until about the age 20, and even then, it's very sparse." So for Spain to win it, and the turnaround they did it within the last couple of years, I really would have hoped that all the foreign, the Latin the romantic countries out there will actually support the local grassroots teams of the females. Spain's got a lot of talent, just like Italy, but they're not really investing at the grassroots. So this was about 3 or 4 years ago that I had this student. So I can only even imagine right now that there might be more talks about getting the women's game going up to the France and even the England's level where they have this kind of grassroots. It's sad to say that, yes, it's such a male-dominant society that they don't put a lot of money into their women's teams, and that goes for at all levels, even professional, for the soccer teams. So it's something to say that this actually might be a blessing that Spain actually beat England for the entire women's game moving forward in the next 4, 8, 12 years. So it'd be interesting to see in the next 12 years how soccer has really transformed because of this. This will give a lot of opportunity for girls that maybe not have it in even Portugal, Spain, Italy, maybe some Eastern European countries. So we'll see. But I really do think it's a great thing for the grassroots of a lot of these Latin countries.
Instead, you mentioned Lindy a little bit earlier, your daughter, who's a little bit young to be playing right now. But, I had to admit, for those girl dads out there, this was a good World Cup. It was the biggest one. You had a lot of diversity in terms of, not only within teams, but representation across the span from the European, and they all performed well, from the European nations to, Nigeria.
Yeah, Morocco in there too.
So the Arab nations, Colombia, and some of the South American nations. Brazil has been typically the bellwether for CONMEBOL when it comes to women's football. But look at,
Colombia especially.
Colombia put on a really great performance. Even the Philippines, I mean, they made it. Yes, they made it with a mostly American-based team, but they still had some of their own representatives. We know when we think Asian women's soccer, we automatically go to Japan, but to see some of the growth of it in like Southeast Asia with Vietnam making it, and then in the Asian Pacific Isles with a team like the Philippines, which has a really large population just spread out over the who knows where. But it has to be an encouraging sign for the of women's soccer.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Philippines, especially, the Philippine diaspora is quite vast due to their economic model of people kind of going other places and sending money back to the country. So it's not surprising that they had a team that had a lot of American players, especially with the American bases over there. I know that when Mike, you being military, me growing up in the military, it was young Navy and young Marines loved going to the Philippines. they loved it. They always felt welcome there. And of course, you see lots of Filipino women and American soldiers who were married. Having half my friends were half Filipino growing up, it was very common. But it's also seeing things like, you talk about Spain and some of these more historic countries finally putting money into the game, which is, I think it's kind of sad that it would take winning this tournament to have a country actually go, maybe we should invest in this. Like, this is like 5 teams have won this. That's it. Like, this isn't, and it's not like this is new. We got to remember, this started when we were kids. And you and I, we're like a month apart in age.
Yep.
And this started in 91 when we were in middle school. Like, we're not young anymore. Look at the bags under my eyes. I mean, I'm bald. I look terrible. So the fact that that's what it took, and I'm surprised that it took Europe this long to sort of catch up, because this is their game. And they allowed the American women to dominate it the way they have for so long. The American women have 8 top 4 finishes in the World Cup. The next is Germany with 5. So there is clearly there's something that Europe isn't doing that they need to do, because there's no reason why they shouldn't be competing at the same level as the United States year in and year in and year in. And you're seeing, of course, you're going to see, rising tides raise all ships. You guys know how much of a fan I am of African soccer, especially. So it's great to see, teams like Nigeria dominated the women's game in South Africa until this past year. You saw Morocco get an AFCON with the women's team, and I brought that up on this show. I was like, okay, that's great. It's good to see some more teams. But there's 2 teams, that I feel like can really come up in the women's game. One is Jamaica. So, and look no further than a sport that G and I are going to do a show on probably next week is look at their dominance in track. It is amazing. The women's dominance in the sprint races in Jamaica is really, I think it's underreported how good they really are. How good they really are. I believe they won 10 of the last 12 Olympic medals in the 100 meters. That's insane dominance. So you got to remember too, yeah, you got to remember this too. That is by a very, very, very select few women who can reach those types of speeds. You don't need to do that to be able to compete in soccer. So athletics in Jamaica is very big. Jamaicans have also been very, very pro women's athletics and women's sports for a long time. You can see Jamaica, you got to remember, there's only 2 million people in that country. It's a small country. So the fact that they were able to compete, and I believe they qualified for the knockout stages. So watch out for Jamaica. The other country, which is a country that, Mike, you also are going to agree with me about this, if they could just get the economic and political situation stable in this nation, there's no reason why they won't compete, and that is Haiti. The athletes that come out of that country are absolutely phenomenal. Look no further than the National Football League. You have Haitian players all over the place. You see the brain drain from Haiti is something that's quite sad, that they have like an 80% brain drain. People from Haiti get educated and they just leave. But I can recall 4 people that I've just met over the years who moved up here in high school and all got athletic scholarships just from it being available to them. So you're seeing also, if you're going to see this spread out as hopefully political environments become a bit more stable. So what I'm getting at is that message is to Europe. Europe, this is your game, and you expect to be dominant in this game. You better get on the ball quick, and it shouldn't take a country like Spain of winning the World Cup for there to actually be some real effort put into growing their athletics. Because, I recall having a similar conversation with a girl from Spain who went to my high school, who was a decent athlete, but I was surprised that she, they just weren't very good at soccer. She said, yeah, girls don't play. That was her, girls don't play. I didn't play till I came here. Yep. So that's what's got to change. And that's got to change in Europe, because if they don't, they're going to see the fact that, wow, the game that we dominate on the men's side is really going to be it's going to be run by North America.
But ultimately, it just comes down to money. Are they willing to invest to make money? Because the women's game, it just seems like there's so much money to be had out there that there's only a couple of countries that kind of figured this stuff out. If more and more countries kind of put, money, millions and millions and millions in there, they'll be getting billions in the future. So I think a lot of these countries are actually hurting themselves in the long run. So Spain is an example. Like, if you put some money, you can make this money and make even more money moving forward.
And look, athletic people in general are great salespeople, because what is their job to do? Their job is to perform under pressure. So businesses in these nations should be saying, wait a minute, we have a whole nother avenue to market. Let's start pushing these athletes as well, because they're going to also generate revenue for businesses and for the economy. So applaud it. Yes, look, I have not been I've been pretty clear that, yes, I didn't follow this World Cup closely. I don't follow women's soccer as closely as some other people on this show. But as I've also been very clear about, I'm a huge proponent of other women's sports, particularly MMA, athletics, things like that. I'm very, very pro those. I watch those consistently. So and as the sport has grown because of the investment and because of the talent that's already there. And I can't wait for, my daughter to get out there and start to run around and see what sport she likes. I'm a little concerned because she seems to only want to sit and watch sports with me when I'm watching MMA, and she's 30 pounds. So I'm like, hold on, little girl.
Hey, look, Layla Ali had a perfectly fine career.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the heart and the bite and the dog, no matter how big they are. They got that heart.
That's why they got weight classes. But it was scary. My wife won't let her watch it anymore because she laughed every time someone got slammed, and then she started swinging. She started throwing punches after a couple of rounds. I was like, okay, maybe she wouldn't watch this. Hey, Zhang Weili is a great fighter. She's very entertaining to watch. So I was like, all right.
They have women's combat sports in the Olympics.
Yep.
Judo is the real thing.
Yeah. So I won't let her do Taekwondo though. I think Taekwondo's like
Taekwondo's another one.
Judo, absolutely.
They exist.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was a really good World Cup. I think that it was partially hampered by the fact, at least in this time zone, it was hampered a little bit by the fact that being in uh, Australia and New Zealand with the
Mhm.
time difference, having
It
those games at
it
the times
was.
that they did, didn't really play well for
Yeah.
a
And Mike, just to clarify
North.
something on my part, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that was what made it difficult for me to keep up with this tournament as well. Because I won't lie, the O2 tournament, I probably watched 5 games, maybe. And because it's just too difficult. It's just too difficult. I'm not waking up at 3 a.m. to watch games, even if it is, that was the United States' best World Cup since 1950, and I still barely watched it because of the time
Yeah,
difference.
no, it has a lot to do with the time difference. It
Mhm.
was even a little bit tough when it was in South Africa. And those games were we had some 8 o'clock in the morning games.
Mhm.
We don't tend to see that as much with the Men's World Cup because they're very conscious of when the times that they put that
Mhm.
on.
Yeah.
And I do believe that is part of the reason why we haven't seen a Men's World Cup go back to the Far East,
Right.
because you would almost automatically lose the North American
The North
audience
American audience. Yeah.
because of the time difference, and then
Right.
putting games on at 2 o'clock in the morning would be
Right.
quite a problem.
Right.
Um, and I know that's had a major factor in why that, and the fact that the U.S. It wasn't even that they got eliminated; it was that they got eliminated while not particularly being fun to watch.
Mhm.
You had that double edge, you had that double whammy of both playing bad and being bad, and
Mhm.
so that makes it a little bit harder to get excited about a tournament when your country is not particularly playing well.
Mhm.
I remember, and I know for a fact because we have the podcast to prove it, when it was the women's Euros, we were all watching because those
Yeah.
games were
I watched a lot
separately.
of those games.
And
Absolutely.
we thought it was a really, really good tournament. And that was
Absolutely.
one that didn't even have a U.S. representative.
Mhm.
You know, you spoke about Europe not putting any investment in, but of the 5 teams that have won a World Cup, I mean, I believe Sweden's in there, Norway may be in there, and Germany may, or Sweden's in there for sure, and Germany is in there. So it's not a matter of just the fact that the U.S. or that Europe. It's just that Northern Europe has done it, whereas
Mhm.
Southern Europe has
Yeah,
not.
Germany is definitely exempt from
And
that criticism.
and
Absolutely.
I have to say, I think that the French have underperformed wildly
Yes.
when it comes to the Women's World Cup, even though they have had for years on top of years on top of years a fairly strong
Mm-hmm.
women's professional league. Of course, it's mostly just the fact that you have the Olympic Lyon women and then like everybody else.
Right.
But it's like is their men's league really that different insofar as you have PSG and then everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, but the Lyon women have to play somebody in the regular
Right.
season, so it forces at least these other teams to
Yeah.
play.
I think it's
Um,
safe to say France is probably the most disappointing team in women's football. They've not had a top four finish ever.
I don't even think that they've made. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think
Yeah.
they've ever made it to the
They've
semifinals.
never made a
And
semi. And
you could make the argument that 4 years ago they had a bit of unfortunate luck. The way the draw
absolutely.
broke for them,
Yep.
it ended up with them playing the U.S. women in the quarterfinals in what would have honestly been a really good final. And I gotta be honest, I thought that the U.S. versus the English in the semifinals was a good game, but I felt more pressure from trying to beat the French
Yeah.
in France
Yeah.
in that particular World Cup.
France did get fourth in 2011. That's it.
But you know what? The
That's
other
it.
unfortunate thing about it is because of the way this World Cup breaks, it's not only that the French women haven't made it to the semifinals in the last couple of World Cups, because of the way that UEFA uses the World Cup as Olympic qualifying. It's not only that we don't see them win a World Cup, we don't ever get to see them in the Olympics
Right.
because, again, it, unfortunately for them, the top 3 teams in this particular World Cup are all European,
Right.
and only 3 teams from Europe can qualify for the Olympics, which
Right.
means, unless England decides that they're not going to field a team because they don't compete as England, they compete as Great Britain, which
Right.
A couple of years ago, what was it, 2 Olympics ago, they did not do that. And it actually gave France an opportunity. I'm sorry, I am lying. France is hosting, so they will be there.
Right. The next Olympics, yeah. It's in Paris.
But typically, you wouldn't see them because they didn't qualify.
But Mike, we talked about this too, though, how the Olympics being associated with the World Cup and with the Euros in that way is really not a good thing. Because the thing about the Olympic tournament is the Olympics are very, very short. It's a very short amount of time, and they have very limited venues because it's not hosted by a country, it's hosted by a city. So because of that, the parameters to put on a successful tournament that in the light of the growth of the women's game, it's not going to work anymore. It's just not going to work. And I think that FIFA would be wise to maybe start to distance the women's game from the World Cup in the same way they distance the men's game, distance the women's game from the Olympics in the same manner as the men's game, because we just talked about the growth of women's football in Asia and in Africa and in South America. It's going to be too big for the Olympics very soon. Look, we're seeing, and you guys know I love combat sports, they're trying to get rid of wrestling. They're trying to get rid of it. And they only have 6 weight classes, which is absolutely ridiculous. The UFC has more weight classes than that. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. So there's clearly a problem with associating this tournament as the game grows with the Olympics. It's just a problem.
Gee, I want to give you a chance to jump in on that one real quick before I respond to the idea of disassociating the make it. I guess what Stead would be saying would be to make it no longer a senior women's tournament.
Agreed. G, you're muted. You're muted, brother.
G, you're muted.
You're still muted, brother. You're still muted. Still muted.
Nope.
All right, there we
go. There you go.
Thank God we don't have to do this crap anymore for teaching. But yeah, it's one of those things that why not showcase the youth? Why not showcase the U21s, the U17s? I know they have their own tournaments, but if you are putting too much miles under your professionals as a club owner, like how many tournaments can these players do every year? Then you skip 1 year because you have the Euros, you have the World Cup, then you have the Olympics. So then what are you going to be doing? Like it's too much on these bodies, but yet they want more and more of their people. So why not showcase the ones that are on the bubble that don't make the teams, like the B teams, and see what the next kind of crop of talent is? Is there a really good situation or a solution to all this? God only knows. So sit back and watch kind of this crap show and people turning the wheels and say, hey, I have the best idea. But really, the best idea is kind of follow the males, the model of the males game. And they have success. And you see the growth in all these even smaller countries. The women, I hate to be like this, but the women need to follow this example because of the success they've had. We have it here in America, but overall, big picture, not so much. So
I think there's a way the women's game can make more money without the Olympics, because right now the Olympics is a big money maker, and I get it, and I want the women to make money. I want them to make all the money they can make. So hopefully they can find a way to have it be more lucrative to make this, the way this is working, a little bit different, because a team like France should never miss out on a major tournament due to another tournament.
I think that one of the issues is like they are going to have to look at how they qualify teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you're never going to have the Olympics expand beyond 16 teams.
Yeah,
right?
because you just can't.
You can't.
There's
just
too hard.
Not enough. And there's also, there's a cap on the number of athletes that a team can possibly conceivably send unless you're the host nation, right? The U.S. always meets that cap. Like we send just about as many athletes as you humanly possibly can to any Olympics because of the number of people that we qualify in every event, and we max it out. It's safe to say, like UEFA should take a look at how they qualify women's national teams for the Olympics and see if there's a way to do it differently than basing it simply on the top 3 finishers in the World Cup. But we've talked about issues with qualifying before. This is not just a women's thing. This is a confederation thing. How many years have the three of us plus the other guys that we've had sat around here and banged on the on how CAF qualifies teams for the World
Absolutely.
Cup,
Absolutely.
and said that it's just a dreadful, it's an absolutely ridiculous system, and they just need to come up with something better.
Well, let me ask you guys this. So, what do you think is more important for the country, the Olympics or the World Cup? Like, what do you think is more prestigious that would maybe draw the next generation to that?
That's a good question. That's a good question for the women's game.
I think one of the issues is that within the pantheon of international women's tournaments, you have the World Cup, you have the Olympics, but not every confederation has
that was going to be my point.
Tournament that rivals the Euros. And to say that the women's Euros have kind of just grown, right? Like, I can safely say this last women's Euros is the first time that I've really sat down and dedicated time to watching this particular tournament. I enjoyed it. I will watch it again. I don't know if it was always like that because it wasn't something that we watched a lot of. So by having the Olympics and the World Cup, and by doing them in back-to-back years, it actually gives these teams a solid almost 18 months of exposure before they kind of go back on the back burner for another 2.5 years, right? So I do think there is a benefit to having these back-to-back tournaments. Perhaps you can say it's cannibalized. Perhaps you can say that it hasn't. The fact that no team has ever gone back-to-back and won a World Cup and followed up by winning an Olympics. For my money, that is kind of, how do you say, that's like the last bastion. That's like the Star Trek, the great frontier that somebody needs to cross, right? If Spain is able to win the Olympics and win the World Cup, I don't know that you could necessarily consider them the greatest women's team ever. Okay, how do I say this? They're not the strong, like, by far the U.S. has had the strongest program because of its longevity and the amount of times it's won both of these tournaments. But this particular Spanish women's team, if they were able to go back to back and take both the Olympics and the World Cup, or reverse that, the World Cup and the Olympics and back-to-back summers, they would certainly have a claim to be the best women's national team
right now.
So you might have an argument over whether they were the best world women's national team ever, because they're the only ones who've been able to go from back-to-back summers.
I really bristle at something like that, but I get it. You know what I mean? I'm not disagreeing. I get it. But Mike, you brought up the very good point though of the confederations and having. It's a shame that there isn't another tournament that is going to excite the not the masses, I don't want to say, but like I'm sorry, they can't be a North American tournament. There just can't. It's US, Canada, and whoever finishes, you know what I mean? It's very difficult to have a North American tournament. Now,
we don't even have a women's gold cup. We have a women's World Cup qualifying tournament.
Yeah.
But we don't have the same sort of women's gold cup.
Exactly. So, but now that you're seeing, all I'm saying is you can see confederations trying to do something to make something else, because look, these things make money. Make money. Look, get in touch with CONMEBOL. It's not just Brazil anymore. It's not. You're now starting to get some other countries that are playing. And so, look, we've been talking about this for a long time too, how the Copa America should probably be all the Americas and not just South America. So it's America. Let's do everybody. So there is, and look, hopefully CAF will start to get some sort of parity now. We'll see. Hopefully that will happen, but I don't know. But the areas that are going to continue to struggle are going to be the Far East, because you're going to continue to see Japan. China was good when we were kids. China was good. China finaled in 91, but China's kind of gone away, which I was a bit surprised about. So it's more of the fact that you have these pop-up nations throughout the world outside of Europe that are good, and yet there isn't a way to get some sort of world tournament, and then maybe a Europe tournament, just something else to get them in front of the camera, something
but
else to
here's
get
my
them.
thing. You talk about now, and years very close. It's too close. The turns are too close together. So now you have 2 years of just like what happened to the females. So you kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and that's what I like about the guys.
You could throw
Yeah.
something in there.
But
You know,
yeah, but you need something. But everything's so close. Once it's all done, then we forget about it. How the men goes 1 year, a tournament, skip a year, another tournament, skip a year, another. So it's always kind of fresher in our minds. Like, oh, we can't wait for next summer. Here we are. Like, we can't wait for 3 more years now and 4 more years. Like, that's a lot of time for soccer fans to wait. If the women's game kind of spaces out their tournaments, so it's kind of more of our forefront, like again, like the male model, the male version of it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that where they could take in more money and make it more popular because it's going to be in your face for a longer period of time compared to ups and downs. So to kind of piggyback what you were saying, said there is a way, but they need to kind of refocus these tournaments, kind of split them apart. So there's things in between these big tournaments.
Yeah,
like you said, All America Cup, something like that.
Yeah, just get your heads together and think about it, because I mean, made up great for the United States to go out the way they did, but it's great for the rest of the world. It really is. It's great for the rest of the world. And what's great for the rest of the world in the long run will be good for the United States. So ride this momentum, put your heads together. I don't know what the solution is, but put your heads together and think of something to just continue to grow the game. Because that's what they're trying to do. You got to grow the game. And look, there's money to be made.
Like stupid amount of money.
There's
that's
money.
The thing but the big thing is, you talk about there's money to be made, there's money to be made, there's money to be made. I think they have to put the investment in and realize that there is money to be made. But the biggest thing is that Gianni Infantino needs to get his head out of his proverbial fourth point of contact and stop with this BS about the prize money and funding that is allocated to women's teams as a result of it. And the reason why I say that is because, contrary to popular belief, FIFA does not sell sponsorships. It does not sell television rights. It does not bifurcate their rights, women's versus men's, right? It is one pot. When you buy both. However, for years on top of years on top of years, they have set it at the fact that the women's prize pot is like 1/100th of what the men's prize pot is. There's no reason that they could do that. You know, if you want, they definitely need to be able to give these federations in these countries more money so that they can, in fact, put more money into their women's programs. One of the things that I believe, and there's very little argument to be said about this, one of the things that has benefited the Women's World Cup with the U.S. women as to why they have been so incredibly dominant is Title IX, right? The fact that colleges had to fund their women's teams at the same amount of money that they did their men's teams. And for a lot of colleges, having a strong women's team was good because, you know, a big women's team eats up a lot of scholarships. And for lack of a better way to put it, there is nothing in the women's sports realm that replicates what a football team does, because there is no other sport that requires 83 scholarship athletes.
Exactly.
So, you know, it became a thing. If we can have a big women's team and a strong women, it gives whatever we put in there, we can put into the men's teams as well. And so, you know, having FIFA say, all right, we are going to fund this at that level, but we are going to require you to do a 70-30, 60-40, preferably a 50-50, but I know they won't get to that on their own. But even if you said that you're going to have to do a 60-30, 75-25 split of that money would bolster it, because right now, the amount of money that doesn't get invested into the women's game by FIFA is purely on them, not anything else.
Yeah, Mike, you're exactly right. FIFA's got a lot of old guys that just need to go away. You know, you just need to go away. I was funny. Hearing that reminds me of, this is totally off topic, but it does fit. I was listening to a podcast and Ice-T was on there. We all love Ice-T, right? And Ice-T was talking about how when he was younger, sponsorships were just non-existent for him. And then as he gets older, all of a sudden he's getting these sponsorships, him and Snoop Dogg. And he says, because the guys who grew up watching me are now 40 years old and they're now the CEOs. And so the same thing needs to happen here, where the people that grew up who remember Brandy Chastain's iconic, ripped her shirt off, she had a sports bra, she was Diesel, she was flexing, we're now 40-something years old. You know what I mean? So those people that don't have fond memories of those games, or who grew up watching their sisters play, or grew up because you had to share the field with the girls team and you were excited because you could go and flirt with the girls team, and hopefully they wouldn't beat you. But those people are now in our 40s. We're now the ones who are in charge. We're now the ones who are running things. Now's the time. You got to get those people, those ancient guys. They just got to get out of there. They got to get out of there.
All right. Let's change tactics and go on to the men's game. The Premier League was back in action, round 2. Manchester United continued to look awful. Enough said about that, and a loss to Spurs.
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous.
What can you say?
I got nothing to say. All I can say is I'm sorry.
I mean, even as all I can say from the United perspective is that they have a very big week ahead, right? I may get back into this if Matt is able to make it on, but it was an awful week in between the loss to Spurs, which was very much deserved. Look, Spurs deserved to win that game.
Spurs did play well. They did play well.
And they were the better team. Did United have a couple of chances that if they had better finishers, they could have put away, maybe made a game of it? Yeah, but that's 2 back-to-back pretty poor performances. They now go to a Nottingham Forest team who hasn't gotten off to the best of starts, but hasn't gotten off to the worst of starts.
And they're playing with a lot of pep.
They're playing with a lot of pep.
Yeah, they are.
And if they have another poor performance that sets them up for an away game at Emirates against y'all's Arsenal, leading into an international break, where either A, they're going to have to come up with a performance about like they did against Liverpool last season to change the narrative, or you're looking at a full 2-week international break where the narrative surrounding a team is that you're in 4 games into the season on 3 points, maybe 4. That's got to change, right? Combined with this botched will they, won't they, will they, won't they, will they, won't they saga with Mason Greenwood that ultimately did result in them somehow stumbling into the right decision to release him from his contract and terminate his employment with the club. However, they just couldn't resist that last little bit by saying, we think he's innocent. I want to point out the fact that having charges dropped because a testifying witness refuses to participate in the legal process is not the same thing as being not guilty. Not guilty, being innocent, and even to a certain extent, being found not guilty is not the same as being innocent. Being innocent by nature means that you didn't do it. Being found not guilty means we could not prove that you actually did it.
Having to the extent that the charges say. Yeah.
Yes. Having the charges dropped in this manner means that our defining witness said that they would no longer testify and corroborate certain pieces of evidence which we needed to present at trial to find a guilty verdict. Anybody who heard the audio recordings of this knows exactly what actually happened and what type of person we're dealing with in this situation, right? So to sit there and say after all of that, we still believe that this person is just patently ridiculous and they deserve all the egg on their face and all the criticism that they're getting, because it is, to say even that, we want to help the couple and we believe that he can grow from this experience. I might be able to hear that, right? I am somebody who believes in second chances, but I do believe that you need to earn them, right? You have to earn them. You have to do everything in your possibility to earn them. And a lot of that comes with when you're forced to deal with the fact that you have all the eyes on the world and you have to go out, show a certain amount of contrition, and then do the work necessary to better yourself, right? Greg Beerhalter had a situation, 30 years ago, where he had an altercation with his girlfriend, who then became his wife, but he went through the process of doing this. He apologized. He did the mea culpa. He did what he wanted to. I think that we can agree, most of us, those of us whose last name is not Rainier, that he did a bad thing when he was 19, but made the steps necessary to do that. It's not the best example in the world, but it's the most comparable one. Look, I'm sorry. Kobe Bryant probably did what he was accused of in that hotel room back in, 98, 99 in that summer. I feel sorry for the young woman who had to go through that. It was an awful thing. He did a bad thing, but you could see manifestly throughout the rest of his life that he grew from that experience. And he had to pay for his education. He had to pay the public humiliation price. And if you saw the size of the rock that he paid, he had to buy Vanessa, that he had to pay the butt price as well.
$4 million, if I recall.
Yes. At that time, which is quite a bit more now.
Absolutely.
And what is it? 4 daughters, 5 daughters later?
5 daughters.
4 daughters, 5 daughters later. Unfortunately, you could see it in how he interacted with that it became clear. We all know the things that Jay-Z has said in his lyrics when he was rapping. But you also hear him now when he talks about having a daughter changed my life. I realize now where I was wrong, and I changed my attitude. I allow people to grow. Michael Vick did something that was completely unexcusable. And instead, I'm a dog lover. I will never excuse what he did, but I will allow the man to get his to have an opportunity because he did the mea culpa. He grew from it. He literally served his time and then went around, and anytime you looked at him, did everything that he could to redeem himself as a result of what he did, right? I have seen
cut off his cornrows.
Yeah, I've seen none of that from not even an attempt. Mason Greenwood, not even an attempt to say, look, I got caught in an unfortunate situation. That was bad. I'm going to work my way back. The thought that he could just the thought that he could just walk back in the team because he happens to be a young man who had a left foot that was touched by the hand of God himself, tells you the entitlement that these athletes had. And I know that the woman, from everything you hear about, it sounds like she's suffering from battered spouse syndrome. I know she is not getting support from her own family. But yeah, that's my piece on that. They botched that up. But to say the situation is currently a little bit rotten on the red half of Manchester is putting it mildly. But let's move on to some bigger and better things.
Let me just applaud. Let me applaud, Mike. That's some of the best monologuing I've heard you do. And we've been doing this show for 5 years. That was very good. Very good, Mike. I want to applaud that. That was great.
Oh, thank you. Meanwhile, someplace in North London, on the red side of North London, things are looking a little bit better. Arsenal doing Arsenal things. Injuries, bit of a problem. We find out that the injury bug bites, and Jurrien Timber's will be out for the entire season with an ACL. We'll get into that in a rash of ACL injuries. But how are you feeling after the last game, going into another couple of matches coming up before you get to Manchester United at the Emirates?
Yeah, I'm still happy with the performance, with everything, even with the red card, playing a man down. It still looked like we were in much of the control. We played very smartly the game. One thing I really loved, and I don't know if you picked this up, but after Tommy got the red card, I don't know if you saw what Declan Rice did. He acted like a captain. He was up there talking with the other refs. You see Odegaard as well with the captain band. But I like that this other guy who just brand new to a team, even though he was a captain of another team, he's coming over and saying, hey, I'm with you guys. I'm here to argue. I'm here to talk with these refs. I had this experience. So I like this kind of undertone kind of captain-esque with Declan Rice, what he did with that. Yeah, so it's unfortunate that Tommy got the red card. He kind of had to do what he had to do to keep that 1-0 lead. It sucked. There's what, 67, something like that kind of minute.
Yeah.
It's a little later in the game. So you still have a good little chunk of the game still to go. However, in the previous years, I'm like, crap, we have no one coming off the bench. But this year and even last year, we had a really good, solid defensive base. We have it right now. We're a little kind of banged up right now. But when we have Tommy coming off the bench and still doing well and even starting, Tierney, when he gets healthy, he's good. We're really solid. But right now, like you said, Mike, we got a lot of injuries right now. We have a lot of things that are coming, and hitting us now defensively and kind of our defensive mids as well. So, but besides that, I like what we're seeing. Our forwards have a lot of speed, and that's really going to help us right now. So we don't have true goal scorers, but with our speed, we will get the goals coming until Jesus comes back.
Yeah, and they have to figure out what to do with Gabriel because, look, I'm sorry, I don't care who's coming after him. I know you said you put a €200 million valuation, €200 million valuation on him. That player needs to get on the field. For some reason, left back is a cursed position at Arsenal. It's cursed. Because look, when did Tommy get the red card? When he was playing what? Yeah. Left back. So I don't like it. I don't like it at all. We're still in the transfer window. Playing Thomas Partey at right back doesn't make me comfortable either. Arteta, I have put the ultimate faith in that coach, G. When they wanted him to be tarred and feathered and ran back to Everton, I was like, no, you have to stick with him. And I'm still there. But
I heard a little.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Hopefully Kieran Tierney will come back healthy, ready to go. I got my fingers crossed. You need to go get a defensive. You need to go get a defender. Go get a defender. And, you didn't get a defender. Hopefully Gabriel Jesus will be back and he will be the center forward and he will stay healthy. I am very skeptical, though. This man has had 2 knee injuries in the span of about 12 months. This is scary. He is 26 years old. 26 years old. This could end his career. This could end his career.
A lot of money just gone. Yep.
Yeah. And besides that, though, I feel bad for him because I felt like, look, yes, you want your center forward to score 20 goals a season, excuse me. But I saw a guy who was happy if somebody scored and he was a part of the play. There's a difference there. He didn't let his ego get in the way. You saw a guy who would create so much havoc in the opposing team's box, and he may just do enough to let somebody else come in and steal the goal. Great. He was happy about that. Whatever. Get the goals in. They have to shore up this defense. Yes, they got a clean sheet. Look, Crystal Palace lost your boy G.
I know. Thank God. See you later. However, they're always tough, though.
They are always tough, but they don't have a goal scorer. They don't have anybody to score the goals right now. So, okay. Look, Crystal Palace has always scared me. I've always respected Crystal Palace as a club. That team has managed to have a really, really solid run in the Premier League, even though they flirted with relegation a few times. They flirt with it, but we've never really been like, oh, they're gone. Even when they've been down there, we're all like, nah, they'll figure it out.
14, 15, somewhere around there. Yeah.
You've always had this feeling Crystal Palace is going to figure it out, and they always do. Yeah. So, yes, I love Easy. I forgot his first name, Ezekiel Abina, whatever. But I like him a lot. I think he's a really solid midfielder. Hopefully he will, or hopefully Crystal Palace can keep him because I know that the Hawks are sniffing. He's a solid player. So Arsenal, you got some work to do because even though I said it looks like City's probably going to run away with this year, I also said that last year, and Arsenal had a shot. I think if the defensive injuries didn't happen, Arsenal would have won. But Arsenal, you haven't had Champions League in a long time. You have Champions League now.
But now we have issues right now, and
because look. The difference between Champions League and Europa League is group stage Europa League. You can play the same guys you play during your cup games.
True.
You can't play those guys in Champions League.
Yep.
For two reasons. Number one is Champions League, those guys, the team's too good. Number two, those players want to play in Champions League. They're like, no, I want to play Champions League.
Did you notice who came off the bench that who's been hurt and we haven't really seen him all kind of preseason? But Zinchenko, he came off. So like these guys are coming back a little bit slowly.
Yeah, Zinchenko's coming back. Yeah.
And it's good timing that some of the stars are getting hurt and these guys are coming back. So we're kind of transitioning. Thank God we play some crappy teams right now. We do have Man U coming up in a couple of weeks, but we got Fulham coming up this week.
Yeah, I'm more scared of Fulham than Man U right now. I'm sorry.
But Fulham's going to be a London derby, and they're always tough. But it's a different team for us. We have one more year experience than we did last year. We have growth. We look faster.
Talking me out the ledge.
Yeah,
look,
huge there.
But this is what scares me about Fulham. Fulham got drubbed by Brentford. They got drubbed.
Brentford ain't bad this year.
I know, but you all look. That's when you get that bounce back game. You know what I mean? You get that bounce back game. And Fulham I can't stand it. I was like, oh, Brentford dragged them through the mud. And I'm like, okay. So all I'm saying is, yes, pessimistic Arsenal fan Stead is still here in full force. Shore up your defense. You got to get healthy. Whoever is running your physio program needs to. I don't understand. Go check the sod in the left side of the field. I don't know. I don't know what
make
it
it softer. Do what you got to do. Add a little more nitrogen in there.
Do something. But Arsenal has lapped the Premier League when it comes to injured starters. They have lapped the Premier League. That's how bad this issue is for Arsenal, and it's been this way for 15 years. Yeah. I'm sorry, Abu Dhabi. Yeah, Abu Dhabi. Whatever curse you because you were injured for the whole time you were on the squad. You were injured. I don't know. You gotta burn some sage. Something. You gotta get this over because this is bad. You gotta stop doing this. But look, you just somebody else who just came back from injury, and G, you pointed it out. Homeboy's been doing CrossFit. He was ripped, and he gets a red card.
But you said Fulham is going to have this kind of bounce back game, but we're at home this week. So on Saturday we had that home field advantage. I think we have a little something to prove. Like, yeah, we're better than this with this crap. I hate to be it, but a lower crappier, Crystal Palace. We should have beat them 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. We want to kind of show you guys. So I think they want to show kind of like, hey, it was a fluke, even though we got 3 points. And again, I'm always about 3 points at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
But we have this right now. We have this momentum. It's a big game for them. I think it's a bigger game for us to keep this momentum going with all these kind of injuries and this kind of transition of the players coming back, players going out for injury. This might be a good game for us. Kind of set the tone of the season. So we'll see on Saturday, man. We'll see.
I'll see. But you got Champions League.
Yes.
Just remember that. You have
Champions League. That means something.
You have Champions League. Arsenal hasn't had Champions League in like 5, 6, I don't know how many years. You have Champions League now. You're back. You have to perform. If they don't quarterfinal in Champions League, I'm sorry, G. I really hope they get Olympiacos or something because you got to exercise those demons. I'm sorry. You definitely have to.
I think if we're talking about the champions, for me, definitely get out of the group stage. Yes, I would love to go
quarterfinal.
I think
the goal quarterfinal.
Just get there. Yeah, whatever happens is a bonus.
Yes, but look, Arsenal is probably the best team that has underperformed in Europe.
Without a doubt.
It's probably Arsenal.
Last 20 years.
They just have not done. No, I would say historically, they have not done well. They have finaled once in Champions League, and they finaled like twice in Europa League. And they've lost every time. I think it's twice. I could be mistaken. But 2 or 3 signings away for competing in UEFA, in the Champions. We're not even remotely close with our forwards. We're not remotely close with our attacking mids. We're right there, but we're not right there. We need Thierry Henry, man. we need Henry, man. Text message like, we need an early Aubameyang. Aubameyang. If we had him early, yes, I'll take him right now because he would fit. Give me 2018 Aubameyang. I'll take him. I'll
And
take it. Yep.
I forgot who said that, but whoever said it in our text message is correct.
I did.
We need like a 20. We need like a 20 goal score.
Yeah, that was Tondo. Yeah,
We need two of them. We need Jesus and someone else
somebody
for times
else.
like this. And
we were overly dependent on Bukayo Saka. That's it. I'm sorry. We're overly dependent on him.
It's gonna bite us in the ass because
Yeah.
if he get hurt one time, we're like, what do we do now?
What do we do now?
We can't go left side because our game plan is right side.
Look, I love ESR, but look, you have a world-class player. Yep. He's one of the best players in the world. I think he can start on any team in the world. You need some help, but that's it. Arsenal therapy is over because we went a little long. Sorry, all you Arsenal haters out there, Chelsea Mike, who loves to throw shade. Even though all I want to say is this too, man. Everton, y'all are garbage.
What's going on with them?
Y'all are garbage. They look terrible.
Why would you expect this team after the last 2 years to look that remarkably?
I don't know.
You know what? We always been down there 2-3 years in a row. We needed more money.
I know why. I know why. I know why. Because I listen to people talk too much. That's the problem. I listen to people talk too much. So there is an old adage of the quote-unquote Everton player. And who was the Everton player? The Everton player was the guy that was a solid backup for a top club who wanted to get minutes. That's an Everton kind of player. That was an Alex Iwobi. That's an Everton player. Okay? Everton players are the guys that finish between 5th and 9th in the Premier League. So you go through their squad, and yes, they don't have a lot of Everton players like they used to. I understand that. But it's Everton. Like, come on, y'all. Come on.
But we've watched this script before with other teams who have languished at or near the bottom of the Premier League for 2 consecutive seasons. And then it's almost like inevitably the 3rd season, it catches up with them. There have not been any real incomings because of the amount of money that they have spent over the course of the last 3 seasons and bad buys. So they didn't improve.
No.
You saw players leave, which means if you didn't back them up like for like, you're not bringing up players who have, strong Premier League futures. What are you doing? You've got Sean Dyche in there who, for my money, it's a bunker mentality. It's like, can we just stay 7th, 15th, 16th, 17th for one more season and hope that we can get this back together? I just don't understand, why we are wringing our hands again after everything we've seen over the last couple of seasons, expecting this team to be manifestly different. I'm not saying as a club, but I'm saying this team, this collection of 30 players that they have, this is what they are.
And it's sad. Yeah, it's sad.
It's sad for the Everton. It's sad for the Evertonians. It's sad for the blue half of Liverpool. It's sad because they're again staring at a struggle to stay in unless something changes. And look, we are 2 games into a 38-game season. A lot can change.
Yeah, and a lot has to change. But I'm more speaking of just the product I saw on the field. Like,
why would you expect them to be that manifestly different than what we saw last year? Okay, nothing has changed.
Yeah, I expected heart. I just expected them to play a little bit more heart. Look, when you lose 4-0 to a club that just got dragged through the mud 5-1 the previous week. Well, I'm sorry. That says something. You can make the face all you want. It says something. So
it says this. It says that Villa were better than a 5-1 defeat at Newcastle, which we knew. We had thought like Villa is a team that was going to be competing for Europe. They got absolutely annihilated
Mhm.
in their first game in a tough place to play in St. James's Park.
But they looked
They had
lost
their
in that
back.
game too.
They looked lost. They looked all the. You know what? They got a response. Full credit to them. Villa are what we thought they are, right?
Yeah.
I think this proved the same thing. Everton are what we thought they are.
Yeah, I wish I could go back and change my picks. I don't think there's any way Everton doesn't get relegated.
I think there's a way that Everton don't get relegated, which is the formula that they've used for the last couple of years, which is, maybe one or two miraculous loan signings or something like that, and a coaching change at the right time to somebody. I don't know who's out there who they can get, but maybe
Big old Sam. Why not?
Brendan Rodgers lost a cup game to Kilmarnock. I was hoping to have Cam on to talk about that, but who knows? Maybe he does it again, and it's like at the end of he gets halfway through the season, realizes that he's not going to win anything. He can't win the treble. Well, he can't win the domestic treble in Scotland. So he's like, screw this. I'm going to go and bail Everton out.
Yeah.
Now, of course, having been Liverpool manager and pulling a Benitez. Rafael Benitez will look really great, and I would love all the commentary for that. But, gentlemen, can we just start to say, like, Everton are who we thought they were?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I'm disappointed. I think it's just because maybe I've had a soft spot for Everton for a little too long, but they just I'm just seeing a team that is looking for other opportunities elsewhere in other clubs. That's what I'm seeing, and that's hurtful. But I guess we'll wait. We'll wait for Chelsea and Mike to come on, because that's another team that in our Premier League discussion that
I don't know what to even make of them, and we'll get Chelsea and Mike.
That,
we don't have
that was. Let me say this: Everton was disappointing, but it wasn't surprising. You know what I mean? I feel like this was surprising.
And speaking of the devil in who shall appear, Chelsea Mike is about to join us, but. Before we welcome in Chelsea Mike and talk a little bit about Chelsea and some other things, Jay, we want to thank you for joining us for the first hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, you're here for a while tonight, G. Love it.
Yeah,
I know. I'm getting a little tired over here. I'm like, oh crap, I got to eat and make some PowerPoint thing review for my students tomorrow. But always fun, gentlemen. Always appreciate talking and bantering the great game of footy. So
yep.
I would love to hear Chelsea Mike and his sorrows right now, but. It's all full circle sometimes. When Arsenal fans get crapped upon, sometimes we just gonna sit back and just laugh. So,
all right, man, go get yourself a hurricane and work on some PowerPoints, man.
Yeah, we're gonna go on Bourbon Street because Seth said he likes bourbon, and so we're going on Bourbon Street to drink some bourbon. So fuck it, why not? I mean, sorry, why not? So maybe I've had too many bourbons right now, but get some Paul Boys while we're down here, man. So it'd be good eating. So I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good week, guys.
Peace out, G.
There's Ted. Later, Mike. Hey, Chelsea Mike. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, man. Well,
doing good, G. Thanks.
Mike, another game, another loss for Mauricio Pochettino, who becomes the 97th consecutive Chelsea manager to lose his first two matches, I guess, right now, right?
Well, in fairness, he drew the first one.
Yeah, same difference.
Still doesn't have all right. The 99th consecutive Chelsea manager to not get a win in his either of his first couple of matches.
It was hard to watch this weekend, dude. It was a regression back to that team we had last year. That just wasn't good enough, and they just really weren't good enough this weekend. It was. There was a turning point in the game, and it was when our $100 million, £100 million defensive midfielder, who by all rights is just amazing, but steps up and just is terrible on a PK. A PK that would have put us up to 1, that would have had us going into the half with momentum, and he stutter steps his way to idiocy, trying to Jorginho a kick when we all know the best way is to Ivan Toney a kick. Just kick it. Just kick the ball hard. And after that, Chelsea just did not look like the same team. Um, it was there was good things. There was Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling looked really good.
He looked great. I thought he looked great.
Yeah, he looked amazing. But then there was everybody else, and everybody else did not look good. And that's when 10 out of your 11 players do not look good. Well, you're just straight up not going to win the game. And the the mood amongst Chelsea supporters, I must say, went from all right, this cautious kind of optimism, had a great off season, to we're back where we were, and nobody likes where we were. Nobody likes that feeling.
It feels as though Chelsea is getting a bit of the old school Washington Redskins under the early tenure of Dan Snyder, where we're going to win the offseason, we're going to chop and change coaches, but then we're going to perpetually be in this rebuilding mode because we don't have the right pieces.
Hey, Bruce Allen said
We
they were
have
winning
a-
off the field 6 years ago, so it's been going on for a while.
All right,
Yeah, and you're not
well,
allowed
Bruce
to call
had-
them that anymore, by the way. They're the Commanders now. They always were. They were never anything else.
No, there was a 2-year period where they're the Washington team of football.
Yeah.
Hey,
Which
I got a sweatshirt.
you got a sweatshirt. I think they should have stuck with it. That way, they could always be known colloquially as the what the.
Still are.
Still are, but it is there a sense amongst Chelsea fans that it seems like a bunch of disparate parts that could fit together some way, but just haven't. Pochettino hasn't unlocked that yet. Like, how do these parts all work together?
I don't think there's a consensus, but I myself have a feeling that if Poch would just do his Christmas tree, right, that's kind of the ideal setup for Chelsea. With a strong two in the back with Silva and maybe Colwill, maybe Disasi. Reece James isn't really healthy right now, but Chilwell and James on the outside. And then in the midfield, Caicedo coming out. Caicedo, by the way, so our $100 million midfielder can't score a penalty kick. Our other one gives away one. So that's just for you keeping score at home. That's 200 million pounds, 2 goals given away by 2 midfielders. Just terrible. But maybe, maybe Enzo, maybe Caicedo, maybe Gallagher, in there, and then a Mihailo Mudryk, maybe Raheem Sterling, because you can't take Raheem Sterling out right now, not after that week that he put in. And then Nicholas Jackson up top. I think if we got the Christmas tree going, the way that he's seemingly always run things before, it would be good. But what he's doing right now with the 3 at the back, it's not working. It doesn't play to the strengths of the guys. I think you have to start Mudryk. Mudryk has shown some propensity to be able to play with Jackson that Jackson is just not getting with other guys in there around him. But Mudryk needs to be a bit more narrow. And it's that's all speculation. It was a bad game. Like, let's not go crazy. Second match of the season. I think you, Michael, could probably speak to that.
I already did.
Like, let's not go wild. but at the same time, the same feeling. I think I will say that I think we feel like we've got the players and we want to play with them and we want to see what they can do. But if it's still this way in December, Potts has got some problems.
Well, the good news is that you have a bit of a cushion coming up the next couple of weeks, the next week, right? Leading into the international break. Newly promoted Luton Town at Stamford Bridge on Friday. Wimbledon in the second round of the EFL Cup at Stamford Bridge on Wednesday. And then Forest coming in a week from Saturday in the Stamford Bridge, all leading into. So it's possible that, this could all be forgotten in a little over a week's time with 3 consecutive wins.
That's true. But I mean, the opposite side of that is, oh my God, can you imagine if we lose to Luton Town? If we lose to Luton Town at Stamford Bridge, it's full on panic, dude. So to me, there's like 3 kind of strands of Chelsea supporters, at least online. Obviously, I live in northeastern Pennsylvania and not within 100 miles of anyone else who supports Chelsea. But online, there's 3 sort of strands of Chelsea supporter. There's the always negative people, and their engagements have been higher over the last year in this last week. Then there's the always, hey, there's the upside. We've got this going. The sort of middle of the road kind of people, but hey, we need to take a look at this. Those are the people who frankly have the biggest followings, I would say. And then there's the always, like, there's the homers, like, Chelsea's great. Chelsea's the best. And I'm telling you that, like, if we lose to Luton Town, those people will get nothing. And the just negative Nancy's who are out there in the world, who aren't right, by the way, we're still Chelsea Football Club. I mean, we're not going to get relegated. But those people will just, they will dominate the fans' conversation because they've started to this week. They've grown in voice, and if even a draw against Luton Town, I mean, anything short of 3-0 against Wimbledon, or a draw or loss against Nottingham Forest. I mean, to me, Poch needs 6 league points and a cup win clean just to get the pressure off, just to say, hey, okay, there's possibilities this season, and these are teams with the talent that Chelsea have should beat. Like, there's just no question.
Never forget, a couple years ago, what did we start? 0-3. So Arsenal.
You're going to have patches in the season and over the course of a 38-game season where it's up and down. You are right, though, and it's interesting phrasing, I feel like, to look at this Luton Town game now as a must-win victory because, like you said, if you lose to Luton Town, the narrative going into the Wimbledon fixture is going to be very, very negative. And the tension that is going to be evident in Stamford Bridge come Wednesday is going to be palpable. Now, you hammer Luton Town like we would expect this team with this manager to do, and all of a sudden that narrative changes, right? And so we just don't know. We regard Poch as like the master of figuring it out with the team that he has and tailoring the team that the style that he likes to play based on the players that he has. I got to say, he played a kind of a different brand of football than we were used to when he was at PSG than when he did at Spurs when he was there the first time, because he just had different players who had different talents. I wonder though if this might be he's got too much to choose from in the same positions, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility.
You know, you're looking around. You've got Mudryk, you've got Sterling, you've got all of these guys who basically play the same couple of positions, and there's got to be pressure coming from on high. I don't care what the team to say. Like, okay, you know, we just spent $200 million on Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. We'd really like to see them in the lineup this week, because I would have liked to have seen Caicedo get another couple of a little bit more training time to be accustomed to the team. It's not like he knows these guys that he's playing with.
Yeah, I mean, well, and you saw it on the challenge that gave away the penalty. I mean, probably wasn't ready to go, but yeah, you want to. I mean, you're down. Mikel Antonio scores a great goal. Like, no, let's take nothing away from Mikel Antonio. In fact, if Mikel Antonio could stay healthy, he'd be, one of the premier forward players in the Premier League.
He's a sprint away from a hamstring issue every game.
He's also like, we forget that Antonio's a little older. He's into his 30s now.
Yeah.
He's not a striker. Like Andy the Hammer would tell us, he's not a striker. He's a converted midfielder, winger, who has become their striker. They have never done anything to back him up. He's the lone striker on that team. And when I mean he's the lone striker on the team, I believe he's the only actual striker that West Ham have. And they're kind of like, hey, we're going to roll you out there. We don't care if we have to bring you out to the field in a wheelbarrow to get you out there. We're going to roll you out every time we need you because you're all we got.
Yeah, he's 33.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say I think he's vastly underrated for what
I
he
agree.
contributed.
For what he's being asked to do. Absolutely. He's a winger. He's a winger. He's a midfielder. He's a winger. That's really what he is.
And, he's somehow turned himself into a double-digit Premier League striker. And I got to say, I think sometimes it's just by the sheer force of will.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's athletically talented. There's no doubt about that. And guys like that, when they find themselves in an advantageous position, they take advantage of it. Again, his thing, there's never been a question about his athletic talent, certainly. Can he play the role? Yeah, he does. And he does it, he's not the best in the world, but he does it well for what West Ham need him for. But yeah, it's the injuries, man. It's not a recent phenomenon. It's not like, oh, he's in his 30s now. It's been his whole career. That's
kind of what has kept him away from a big club move, is the fact that he's injured. The best ability is availability. And he's proven throughout his career that he just, he's going to pick up injuries. I don't know if I would necessarily call him injury prone per se, but he's definitely a guy who is not, you can't count on him to give you 30 plus games in the course of a season, because he's just going to pick up that injury. He's going to miss time. And it's going to be, again, interesting to see what West Ham does when he does get that inevitable injury. While we've got you here, Mike, women's soccer is one of your fortes. We talked about the Women's World Cup at the top of the show, but I want to give your chance to have your say on what you thought of the final, because I know that you have been following this probably more than anybody among us.
Oh, and my sleep schedule has suffered for it. It's unfortunate it was on Australia. I'm sure Australia thinks the same thing when games are in Europe, especially. The final was not exactly lighted up football. It was not like the men's final in the way that it was entertaining, but it was an absolute clinic. It was the way the Spanish men wished they could play. It was tiki-taka and ball control, but ball control with an absolutely specific purpose. And Spain were the best team in this tournament. Spain are the best team in this world. And I want to let me just point out some winners and losers in the tournament. I think losers, obviously Vladko Andonovski. He will always be branded a loser, and let him forever be known that way. I think old powers, Germany, Brazil, didn't make it out of the group stage, and Alex Pop is over 30, and she was their spark plug and best player. But I think the winners of this tournament were Australia. I think the women's game grows there. And with Sam Kerr, who didn't even play that much in the knockout rounds, their biggest star, they found new stars like Steph Catley, and they were there. They filled up the stadiums. But the two biggest winners were England and Barcelona. England, because England has, if not the first best, but the second best women's league in the world. And I might argue they're the best, but I'm an American, so I'll tamper that down. But England won the Euros. They went on this run. You know, they just the players, Lauren Hemp, Alessia Russo. They've got talent there, and that talent plays in their league. And I think that it's just an exceptional growth point for them. There was apparently 9 million people in the UK watching this. And they did not see their team win. Valiant effort. They played a great game, but at the end of the day, the Spanish just played the game that they wanted to play, and England couldn't get through that ball control style offense. But the biggest winner in this was not only Spain, but Barcelona. Barcelona controls Spanish women's football. Barcelona fills the Camp Nou with their women's team. And their women's team has Alexia Putellas, biggest star in the world. They've got Periuelo, the biggest young star in the world now, but they also have Caicedo, who had a great tournament for Colombia. And the growth and domination of Barcelona women's football is, I think, the defining story of this World Cup cycle these last 4 years. The ability of these women, they're amazing. They have really they've grown the game in Spain. I think what they need to do is they need Barcelona to do a worldwide tour, because they've got Putellas, they've got your young stars, and they should put on exhibitions to grow that Barcelona brand, because Barcelona is making just they're a story. It's Barcelona of old in the men's game with their elite youth development that they just don't do anymore. But full credit to the Spanish women's national side. They deserved it. They're deserving champions. It was an absolutely excellent tournament. If you weren't up to see it, I apologize, but you missed out on some of the best football I've ever seen in an international game. And Spain, they did it.
So thinking about how Barcelona dominates the women's team for Spain. We've mentioned the fact, France has come up short on occasion because everything's down to Lyon. The women's La Liga can't survive if it's basically just Barcelona and 6 or 7 other teams that they get to play against them. The game just will not grow. So the first question is, can this be an impetus for Real Madrid and Atleti, who would be the most logical two to get involved more in the women's game and prop that up to give them some competition? Because I can't imagine that the Madrid teams are happy with seeing Barcelona dominate anything.
No, no, and look, Real Madrid. So the Spanish Women's League, La Liga Femenine, is pretty much a two. It's a one-team league, but it's got Real Madrid is okay. They don't really compete with Barcelona. They do have Olga Carmona, who was the hero of both the semifinal and the final. And they have some very good players there who are also on the Spanish women's side. But pretty much the entire Spanish women's side is 90% Barcelona, 10% Real. I think that if you get a sensation like Barcelona to fill your stadium, I think that does help the game, that in the sense that you can put a little bit more money in. But I do think that the Spanish sides, if they want to grow, they have to look outside of Spain itself, and you're going to have to spend some money, some of the men's money, on some of the women's sides. Like if you look at some of the great teams throughout Europe, Chelsea have actually very few English, well, not very few, but fewer than most English players. If you look around, Wolfsburg, who was the European finalists, they have a lot of Dutch players, with players from other countries. You have teams outside of Barcelona have to start looking outside their country. They're right next to Africa. Africa showed in this tournament how much talent they have in moving through in having three sides move through the group stages to the knockout. So, I mean, I think you have to look for new options if you're an Atleti, or if you say you're a Valencia and your men's side has faded in glory. Benny McCarthy isn't around anymore. Maybe having a great women's side, which is a thing that you can do to bring back interest in your club. And it's cheap. It's a lot cheaper than trying to do that in the men's game. So, look, Barcelona being completely and utterly dominant is great for Spanish football, but it's not ideal for the Spanish league. But at the same time, having a growth engine like that, I mean, they're World Cup contenders, Olympic contenders. They're every major tournament contender Spain is for, the next 15 years, you can say.
All right, in 3 words or less, can Spain do what no other women's team has done and be back their World Cup up with an Olympic gold medal next year in France?
How about 10 words or less?
5.
Okay. Maybe. Who's the U.S. coach?
Irv Renard.
I mean, we can do better than that, right?
If Spain does go World Cup and Olympic back-to-back, does that make this particular Spanish team the best women's team ever?
I'd argue to make them amongst one of the best teams ever, regardless of gender. And yes, it would certainly put them amongst the best women's teams ever.
All right, Mike, we thank you a lot.
Okay,
go for it. What's up?
I just it's different games. It's different games. You can't compare the men's game to the women's game. You can't do that. I'm sorry. You can't do that. I'm sorry. You just can't. It's a different game.
Different games. I don't know if it would make them one of the best teams ever, because I'm not going to get into that, but definitely amongst the best women's teams ever.
Mm.
I kind of fundamentally disagree. It's a
Yeah.
ball and a net and 11 people on a pitch.
Okay.
It's the same game.
It's not, but okay. We're gonna still agree disagree on that,
Yeah,
Chelsea Mike. I still love you, brother.
I feel like I've got tension that I can let build for another show. And
Yeah, you
completely change
could.
tracks.
You could.
All right. So instead, apparently somebody is celebrating a birthday coming up soon.
Yeah, maybe 2 days.
2 days, which
Yep.
makes you almost as old as one of our favorite forms of music.
That's true.
He's almost as old as classical music.
He's almost as old as Mozart.
Oh man. What gave it away, man? Wasn't my hairline?
Yes, it was your hairline.
Look, Chelsea Mike, not all of us can have some frizzy hair in our mid-40s. Mr.
Hey.
Man.
You know,
Yeah,
there's
you know
two
what, I
there's
will
two
say
mics
that
in
the
one
mics on
set,
this
and we
show-
both got frizzy hair.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the mics on this show definitely sporting the frizzy hair tonight. Mike, I will say that your coif looks quite great, while mine looks like the south end of a northbound mule.
I don't know. You got a Questlove kind of thing going on. I like it.
No,
You
I
look like
definitely
you look
do
like a
not
poet
have
in the
the
Harlem
fro going on.
Renaissance.
But instead, I want to point out, I now have 3 of the 5 groomsmen from my wedding on the show standing right now.
Oh wow, really?
Chelsea, Mike, we're going to say a quick hi to a longtime correspondent who we haven't had a chance in a while. I drug him back on just for this one. Welcome back in to the pod fold, somebody who we miss dearly, Rob Prophet, aka Bobby from Brooklyn. What's up, Rob? Oh, he's on mute. And of course, the one, the only, live on my show, DJ Commish.
What up, y'all? How you doing? Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
man.
you just fine. Where are you coming from?
Well, I'm in New York. I'm in Westchester County, New York. But
You
yeah,
was in I know you were in Houston recently.
I was in Houston on Friday. But I came back because I had to do an event in Newark on Sunday. And yeah, now I'm back home. So I'm home for the week. I'm home until Labor Day weekend and get back on the road.
Now, ostensibly, we're going to change the tracks and we're going to end up this show talking about something completely different instead, something that I know you love just as much as I do. But widely recognized, we have decided that August 11th is the birthday of hip hop. So August 11th, 1973, apparently DJ Kool Herc DJ'd a party in his sister's house in the Bronx and became the first person to spin a hip hop set. I might disagree with that because I don't believe that you necessarily can assign a birth date to a movement, but that's the collective mythology. Will, this has literally become your life. Rob has been for a long time, and now re-emerging as one of the better breakbeat DJs that I know. I remember in college, and that's how we all met, going up and listening and working with these guys when they was DJ getting their starts. And Will, you're from the Bronx, so this really literally quite literally is your life.
Yeah, it really is. The crazy thing is that I missed every single one of those events for this month and for this 50th anniversary event because I have my own events going on at the same time. But yeah, all of it, I know exactly where that building was that Kool Herc was at. They had a block party on that Saturday, August 12th, in front of that building, to commemorate the 50 years. There was a huge concert at Yankee Stadium that Friday night, which seemed like everybody in hip hop was there. So it was an amazing, just an amazing couple of weeks in New York. And just so many different things. And the great thing is that New York has a mayor who's Black, right? And I think he's only the second Black mayor in New York, but he really allocated funds so the city really supported it and gave threw out a lot of events. So I thought that was cool to see. Like there's still events going on. I think there's one in Staten Island this week to commemorate 50 years of hip hop. I think that's the final event of the whole month of events they've been doing. But they've brought out everybody, like everybody that they could find, has come out and been a part of these, free concerts and block parties that's been going on throughout the city. So it's been a really, really cool thing to see. I just wish I was able to take more part of it than, but my own schedule's been crazy. So it is what it is. I gotta keep the lights on.
Yes, glad you're getting work, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, gentlemen, this is always, I don't want to say this was the soundtrack of my growing up, but this has been like the soundtrack of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can go back and think about it. For me, it was driving around North Philly with my cousin and my uncle in an old 76 Buick with a tape deck, listening to tracks that they dubbed in old mixes and things like that got me in love with it. I don't know, Stead, what was it for you?
Man, it was there's songs that remind me of pivotal moments in my life. It was usually when I, being a military kid, when I had to move from one place to another, or specific familiar interactions, or milestones in my life. I can listen to songs and it takes me back to where I was at that particular time. That's really what it was for me. It was also something that I thought was going to be something that me and my sister could keep away from my dad. And of course, my dad got a hold of it and loved it just as much as we did. So there is my musical tastes span the spectrum. I mean, I probably spend more time listening to what DJ Commish's shirt says right now as opposed to hip hop, because I am a lover of reggae music probably more so than anything. But it's we can still recite lyrics. I mean, I can play 3 Feet High and Rising by De La Soul and probably rap half the album, even though I haven't heard the album in 5 years. I can still do it.
Absolutely.
Do it. And I mean, nobody was happier than me that they finally got their flowers and they finally got their stuff on to the streaming platform, so those guys could finally get their just due, because I still think that is the greatest rap group of all time. And I will argue that to my grave. So that's what it means to me. I mean, and I also want to say what I'm most happy about is you're seeing a lot of these older hip hop heads starting and being guests on all these podcasts, and you can hear them tell their stories, and they're the ones that we should be hearing the stories from. And especially while the sad thing about hip hop is that so many of these artists have died. And so the ones who were around in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the ones who are alive, who are able to really talk about what things were like back then, are of the utmost importance. And I'm really glad those are all getting recorded and they're getting digitized, so we can continue to watch them and listen to them. And there is a firm reason why they are part of collegiate courses now. And in fact, it's funny, I used to teach a course in DJing to middle school students, and I actually had them mix break beats on jazz records to kind of show them, like, this is how, and I wasn't even teaching hip hop. I was teaching more of a for the floor of a drum and bass and of house music, because those are a little bit easier for kids to kind of get their hands on as far as matching beats is concerned. So that is, and I think it all comes from the same umbrella, and it does it. And yes, and we also need to give Jamaica their respect, because the Jamaican music scene is kind of what spawned a lot of this.
I mean, well, Kool Herc was Jamaican, so
yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
that
was
absolutely.
That's why there was so many. I don't know if anybody saw the BET Awards this year, but they did like a tribute to hip hop, a 50th anniversary segment tribute to hip hop, and they bought out Busta Rhymes. Oh no, it was Busta Rhymes. They gave I guess like a lifetime achievement award to Busta Rhymes, and he bought out reggae artists. And he was like, yo, there was a dance hall and reggae had a lot of influence in what what hip hop is and what it became. So yeah. I mean, this was not a It's just a coincidence that I happen to be wearing this shirt. I just had this shirt on today.
No, it's all good.
No, it's funny because we're talking about hip hop. You're wearing a shirt that says reggae, and
Reggae.
I'm wearing a Nirvana t-shirt.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, but you can still say like even the influence of different music forms on hip hop and the influence of hip hop on different music forms. Hey Bobby, are you there?
I am here. What's up?
What's up, brother? All right, you DJ'd a time or two. I know that you're a big hip hop fan. What was it that made you fall in love with the art form?
It's one
And
of
you're
those
a
things that,
graffiti artist too.
yeah, a little bit. It's one of those things where it's like hip hop goes back as far as my memory does, because a lot of my life memories do go back to hip hop. My grandmother, whether she lived in the Frederick Douglass houses on the Upper West Side, was right by where they would have the Rocksteady, parties every year. So I grew up seeing that handball court with like the Jaguar on it, and looking at the graffiti, and then going and hearing all this music. And they would have parties in the park. Like, I mean, the old school thing where they talk about getting the power from the street lights. That's what we did. There was a guy who lived in the other building across. It was a park, like, and at night everybody would come out, and he's talking like 80, oh God, man, before crack. I mean, that's really what it was. And it was so different. It was cool. It was peaceful. There was no fights and nothing. It was pretty chill. Like, everybody would just come out and have a good time, kids, adults. And the guy would just spin, and we would listen to the music, and it was just, like really like innocent times, to me. Like, and then going through all that, then just seeing it evolve, and then been listening to it hardcore, like going and listening to, I was listening to, God, like Brand Nubian and with my little pale ass back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, I loved it. I heard it, and I'm like, this is, like, and that's all the stuff I was listening to. I was into Tribe Called Quest. I mean, I was taping Red Alert's shows from when, and like, yeah, dude, that was a way of life back in the day. I remember sitting on my floor in my room with my tape deck and pause mixing that and listening to Red Alert, and then when Flex would cover for him, the Dr. Dre and Ed Lover on the Operating Room on BLS, DJ Silver D, like this stuff I always was always around, and like I still have these tapes, and I break them out every once in a while, but like of mixes, and just even listening back, and I remember all the lyrics. I could memorize lyrics even when I didn't want to. It was always a part of my life. And then you get older, and you're in middle school, and then in New York and in Queens, at least where I grew up, everybody was writing graffiti, and everybody had a tag, and it was one of those things where like the hip hop was the soundtrack of all that. Yeah, graffiti came before hip hop, but it was damn sure it was mostly the soundtrack of graffiti from the late 70s or the early 80s even, and all the way through. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the artwork on all the album covers was always graffiti. Like, it was always intertwined. A lot of hip hop artists wrote graffiti. Like, most of them. Kool Herc wrote graph too. His name was from his tag. So it was like they were always intertwined. They always mesmerized me. It was just the whole culture, the whole idea of it, the breakdancing. Yeah, I would try. I couldn't obviously do it.
Oh, I was big. I was a breakdancer myself.
I couldn't do it. I wasn't
very good. I was all right.
I was god awful. Yeah, you're not a dancer, Will. I mean,
no, absolutely not.
I've seen you dance before, but you're not.
Hearing you talk though, man, this reminds me, man. If you had a friend who was from New York who would go up there from time to time, you gave him a pack of tapes. You were like, bro. He was like, yeah, I'm going home for a week. And he was, and I was living in North Carolina, and I was in elementary school, and siblings are like, oh, your friend is going home. Give him this. Tell him to give it to his dad. He'll know what to do. And like they would go and they would record the radio and bring him back. And then when I was living overseas, we would get, that was when Stretch Armstrong and Babito, their show was out. And we'd get these mixtapes, and they would get passed through. I mean, by the time it got to the fifth guy, the tape was so worn out, you barely got half the music. But it was if your boy came into the lunchroom and he had a new tape, the crowd was around that table. And it was, and me, when I was living overseas too, it was so iconic that the TAs would come by the table and they wouldn't break anything up. They're coming by to listen. So you got the TAs who were there, who were probably they're in the 20s, they're much older than we are.
and they're like, "Oh, what is this?" And then of course they wouldn't get too close. But they just stand by you. You expect they're gonna break you up. They're like, "Oh no, he's listening. He wants to know what the new tracks are." So yeah, that was a big deal for me. Was I think this is why, like, no matter what other area comes out, you got to go back to New York. You just have to go to New York because that's where it all came from.
But that's crazy hearing that. That's beautiful to hear. That's hearing it from the other side. Because like me and Will, like we got it firsthand. I mean, we got it hot off the presses. We were we were the ones making the tapes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's funny, and then hearing it. And again, this before the internet. At a certain point, and there's just this is how people got this information and got this stuff by and look at how big it got off of that, off of mixtapes. Really,
And look, my family is from DC, and I'm still angry at DC to this day for not getting on the wave. They never did. They were so stuck on go-go music that's still what it is. And now there really is no major hip hop. There really isn't a major hip hop scene in DC. I'll flat out say it. But they love their go-go, and go-go is straight up DC. But
Wale is there right now. He's there.
We got Logic.
Wale and Jurassic 5.
yeah.
But still though, but that's what it was, man. I mean, if you had a friend who was from New York, and as we got later, who was from Philly, every time they left, you gave them tapes. You were like, take these with you because you got to record. And even when I was in college in Eastern North Carolina. Friends from New York would come. This is in the 90s. They're like, oh, well, you haven't heard this. And they'd come back and they would have new stuff. And if you had it and you go to your friends who weren't connected, you were the cool guy. Like, that's how big it was. And that's how big it still is practically. Probably, as you said, this is pre-internet. So it was all about getting that mixtape. That mixtape was everything.
Yeah. I mean, and like Rob said, we used to make those. So even when we was in school, there was a demand for them then.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. That's like those. I'm listening, and I'm like, man, these were the days. How people consumed music back then was so different than what it is now. And but we were all fiends.
We got our start dragging crates.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, we did. We came out of that class, man. Yeah. I carried records, so did Will, man.
I still have mine. I've had probably 300-400 records sitting in boxes right now that I just can't. I can't part with them. I just can't do it.
Don't get rid of them.
I got a stack. I got rid of most of mine, but I got a little stack right here.
I can't. I've gotten rid of stuff over the years. All the promo, the real awful stuff we would get for free. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I threw out one of these old steamer trunks, not like a small one that's probably maybe like 2.5 feet tall. Full of them. I went through them. I'm like, I had a couple of, my brother-in-law and stuff. We just go through them, like garbage, and we still had a lot. I still have a lot. I had. Forget my catalog.
I got an album that Fife put out after Tribe broke up the first time from some independent label in Germany. Somehow I stumbled across it. I was like, how did I get this? I found it a few years ago. I was like, how did I get this? And I was like, well, I can't get rid of this.
Wow, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
I like to hear that too. I'm a big Tribe fan from the Buddy days on De La Soul. The little Buddy. Yeah. I was listening to this. Yes. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Like, it was the soundtrack of everything. I can think of all the good times. Like, if you think of your life as a movie, there's always a soundtrack. My soundtrack is probably 80. I like a lot of different stuff. I would say about 80% hip hop.
Yeah.
Various ages, obviously. But I mean, the first 12-inch vinyl record that I bought with my own money, It Takes Two, Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. I bought that in the Wiz on 96th Street and Broadway. So this is how far back it goes. That meant a lot. I still have that record somewhere. Yep.
My first CD was Fushnikins. Debut album. That's
I used to love them. I still like everybody. I'm sorry, but like everybody always dogs them, and I'm like, I liked it.
I agree, bro. Yo, Chip did a freestyle with Chris Rivers. It's on YouTube somewhere, and he closed. He still got it. Like, yo, what happened to Chip Fu? He still got it, dude.
He was ahead of his time, I guess, or something like that. And like maybe if he came out later, he would have. Because the thing about it, both Bone Thugs and Harmony kind of sounded different than everybody else, and maybe at a different time with a different. I don't know, but I always Chip Fu was. Oh yeah, I love the Fushniks. I remember, and again, that was the other thing. Let's say your friend got a CD. you hit him up with a blank tape. Your boy's gonna make you a copy of it.
Yep,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And you return the
Absolutely.
favor every time. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
I got Bizarre Ride to the Far Side on CD,
Ooh.
and I sat in my room for a weekend, and I probably made 14 different tapes for people. Just plugging it in, play, record, plug it in, play, record. And this one thing I love about hip hop too. It's like people don't really get it too. Is I was at a place with my kid, and they were playing DMX, and there's a guy there, and this guy's got he's got a mullet. He's got this gray mullet pulled back in a ponytail. He's got on a old dirty t-shirt. He's got the sleeves ripped off of the flannel shirt and everything like that. He's got on some, Bud Light cap or something like that. He knows every lyric to the whole song playing.
Yeah.
It's just so that's why I was like, but who, and the guy's probably older than me, probably 50 years old, but that everybody was into hip hop. Everybody was.
I look at it this way, Doc. I think of the first three tapes I ever bought. I was 10 years old. All these albums came out the same year. Long Live the King, Follow the Leader, and The Great Adventures of Slick Rick.
Oh my God.
That is one of the most underrated hip hop albums of all time.
That's a great album.
It's a great album.
It's a great album. Great album. Tremendous album. And the funny thing is that the other night, I before I left for Houston, I was watching Showtime. I couldn't sleep. And my flight was early. So on Showtime at like 1 a.m, from 1 till 3, I had to get up at 4. But from 1 to 3, they were showing, and I hadn't seen it at all. I didn't even know it was out. But the Mass Appeal, which is the company that Nas, put money behind to make these documentaries, they dropped the newest one, and they dropped one on Biz Markie. That one was amazing.
Okay.
That is a must watch. If y'all haven't heard about that one,
I just saw something on that. Biz Markie used to come down once a quarter to the Fillmore in Silver Springs.
One of the nicest guys in the world too.
And
one of the nicest dudes I've ever met.
He would do an 80s, 90s dance party.
Wow.
And they would have some either hair metal cover band or some 90s boy band cover band play, and then Biz Markie would come out about 10:30 and he would start DJing.
Wow.
And he would spin for about 2 hours, and inevitably he would get to the point where he would play his song. Always do the same doggone thing.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know who I am, this is exactly who I am.
Right.
Will, I know that I could keep on doing this, and you know what? We may try and get these boys back and just do another show and do this for an hour. But I know Stead's going to turn into a pumpkin in a little bit, so
that's true. I got to get up at 5.
Will, can you do me a favor and spin us out?
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can.
Rob, great to hear your voice again, though, brother. Glad you came back on.
Great to hear you. And while Will gets himself
same here.
I want to.
Good to see you, looking good, gentlemen. You see me? I gotta groom myself. I'm always had a face for radio, anyway.
Well, Will gets ready to go. I want to thank Coach G for coming on and spending a lot more time than I had anticipated. But it was great to talk to him. Chelsea Mike coming on, giving us a little bit of his take on what's the haps at Chelsea Football Club and his view on the Women's World Cup. Rob Prophet, good to hear your voice. We hope to see you again soon. Of course.
Oh yeah.
DJ Commish coming on, dropping some knowledge and the ones and twos. And it wouldn't be right to forget to thank producer Stead for all the work that he does. You know what, boys? We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week. But until then, I invite you to listen to the stylings of DJ Commish and visit the DJ Commish experience, see where he is. And if you have the opportunity to go out and see this man spin, please take advantage of it. Commish, take it away.
Appreciate it, y'all. Appreciate it. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You can hear the music.
No.
Oh, it's not coming out?
No.
Oh, that is a problem. Because
There
I
you go.
am
I can hear it
playing.
now.
You can hear it
I
now?
heard it. I just heard it.
I did not.
It's very low, but it's coming through.
Okay. That's a technical issue.
Okay. Then why don't we go ahead and
End it, and we'll do this again.
end it, and we'll do this
Yeah.
again, because what we'll do is yeah, I'll do some editing, and we'll just wrap this up, and then but we'll get you back on here, and then we'll do, because I think this was a little too much fun, and I don't want this to end, but I'm tired and I still haven't even eaten dinner yet. So we gotta do Mike, looks like we gotta add another channel, Mike. I guess we gotta add another channel.
And we'll just, Will, you tell us your schedule and we'll work around it.
All right. Well, I mean, Tuesdays can work.
Okay, cool.
Tuesdays can work.
We might be able to do something before we do our show.
Yeah.
All right, we'll make it work. We'll make
Yeah.
it work.
We'll
Hey,
figure it out.
Commish, if you're ever in Atlanta,
I will
me
be
know.
out there in October.
I'll
I
be
heard
there.
that you're going to be down in DC.
That just fell through today. It was supposed to be September 8th.
Yeah,
But
I
that fell
love it when
through.
you come to DC and you remember to tell me.
Yeah, that fell through. I was gonna be out there the 8th for South in the City and for the Howard Hampton weekend, but yeah, it's not gonna happen now. They changed the time of the game, and that messed up the whole party situation. So.
Welcome to Howard.
Howard Homecoming. Can I just say
Hopefully
something
they
real fast? Can I just say something real fast? Howard Homecoming, like I remember going to that with you guys, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun. Like I really
I
had a
seem to
great
remember a
time.
time when it was you, me, Will, Terrence, Alex, and Alex's entire crew.
Yes, Max and all them. Oh my God! Everybody from
Every time we
Brooklyn
took a
came through.
picture, the picture just grew and grew. It started off with 3 people. Simon was there.
Yeah.
It
Oh!
started off with 3 people, and by the time it ended up,
So many of us,
I forgot
at least
who
20 of us.
Alex had a friend, a big guy, big black guy. I can't remember who it was, who stole somebody's kid.
Okay, I know no, not Max, and it was no. We talking about Marty? Like his the
wasn't
big
Marty.
guy. No, not the other big dude who's like a football player. I mean, this is going way back.
No, it was one because I think Alex was there. I think Smacks might have been there too.
Sounds about right. That sounds about right. Brent was out there. Smacks was definitely out there. Smacks was out there. Smacks was smacked too.
Weren't we all? Terrence was literally. I'd gotten like a bottle of like Crevassier or something like that. He was like taking it away from me, and he kept messing with me. He would take it and put it right in front of my face. And I was bombed, and he would be like, "Here," and he would pull it away just out of your reach. And I'm like, "What a jerk!" You know?
We were in Harlem, Will.
Yes.
And Smacks was there, and you asked him to pour you a vodka and cranberry. Poured you a whole glass of vodka and waited the cranberry juice over it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm totally gonna close this by fading out the voices as you guys are telling stories. I'm just gonna end the show. Okay.
It's always good
the
stories.
got
Yeah,
bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time there were like 50 people, and somebody had stolen some woman's kid, they're like, "Here, let us take a picture with the baby."